Honey Nut.
Welcome to Book Club for Movies, everybody. For the week of December 14th, I'm Ryan Miller. He's Matt Amberg. What did you just say? Honey Nut?
That's what I'm going to call you from here on in. You're my honey nut.
And this is one of those weeks where typically we watch a movie and then we invite you to talk about it, where you can find us at podcast@bookclubformovies.com or Facebook and Twitter. But this is one of those weeks where we watch the most stuff and do the least amount of preparation.
AKA 0
hit points?
R.I.P.
And it's because this is one of those television volleyballs that we invented.
Volleyball.
And own the rights to.
In perpetuity.
If there are any knockoff television volleyballs out there,
you're going to jail.
Yeah, don't do not patronize. Come to the real deal here. The real fake sport thing where we just talk about all the TV shows that we're watching. Here it is. This is the one.
Bang up work. All right. So far, so all right.
With Matt and Ryan.
Yo, let's talk about television.
We talked a little bit about this on shows past and which ones we might talk about this week. We have, I feel like, two big conversations, whether we like it or not. And I'm tempted to start with one of them, but I can't do that unilaterally.
I mean, you absolutely can.
I've tried to in the past as strategy.
It's a volleyball situation. You're kicking off the volleying with the ball, so you go, girl.
You're right. This is the kickoff that you would typically see at a volleyball.
That's right.
Concert, like they're called.
We know sports very well. And
as sometimes happens during those, the other team can force it if they want. I believe. Sports. So I don't know. It's up to you. You know what the big two conversations are. Do you want to? I don't know.
Yeah,
do we save those to the end?
No. Let's start with one of them. I don't know which one you want to start with. The good one or the good one?
This is such a magnanimous game from the beginning. We're like, I don't know. Whatever first volley you want, good sir.
You know what? I think let's. I got it. Here's what we're gonna do.
Knives are coming out.
Yeah. Let's start with maybe the bigger of the two. I think. Let's just get right into it. The Mandolorian.
Okay, I'm glad it was that one. Let's start with the bigger of the two, the Umbrella Academy. Oh no, this is. I was
gonna say the Queen's Gambit, but then you haven't watched it, so it's all gone.
I have not. No, so that would be bigger than the Mandalorian if I had watched the Queen's.
Well, yeah. I mean, you've got cards that explode. You've got women that can turn into ice.
Oh, you almost had me.
You were like, I'm in. Oh, I'm
the
not
Gambit
in.
Joke.
Hold on for 1 second. Actually,
hey, that really was 1 second, not due to editing.
So, I may be a little slow on the uptake on this one because I've been keeping up with it, and you just caught up all at once, like within the past week or something.
Yes.
So
I think we watched 3 in a day on Saturday, quite possibly.
So I got to tell you, for the Star Wars geek, there's a ton that I had to look up this whole series this season. But there was a ton I didn't. And oh boy.
Yeah, we're talking about season 2 here.
Oh boy. I mean, they seriously decided, you know what? Hey, where'd that kitchen sink go? We got to galacticize it and throw that into this thing because...
we made an announcement that the kitchen sink didn't count anymore. Why? Why do you ask?
So number one, I think that this season has done a fantastic job of upping the ante while maintaining the quality of the characters, the quality of the story overall. Like I'm not even in the slightest thinking this is a sophomore slump, even remotely. I think this is definitely one of the few shows for me where I honestly think that, everything fed in further. I also think that might be due to the fact that I've got some background with Star Wars in general, like deeper than just, I've read books, I've read comics. I knew who a lot of these characters were. We're going to talk about briefly Ahsoka. I squealed. I seriously made noises when Ahsoka was number one mentioned, and number two, when it ended up being Rosario Dawson, who I totally did not either know or I had forgotten was cast.
That was the only thing I remembered. Yeah.
That was incredible. The maybe more shocking surprise for me was actually Bo-Katan. I did not expect to see Bo-Katan, and then having it be Bo-Katan, that was the Bo-Katan from the show too. That was like wait, they just were like, you know what? Let's just get Katie Sackhoff to redo it. Just bring her in.
She's from Clone Wars
Clone
too,
Wars,
right? Wasn't
yeah.
it? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Which I'm not up on. We are going to spoil this show, and this is actually, although while I will say we're going to spoil everything, but I think you'll be entertained in watching The Mandalorian season 2. There's part of me that says it's more worth it to go in blind and have those surprises. So
probably
if you want, don't listen to some of the words we say.
Rewind. Ignore what I just said. Bo-Katan? No. Ahsoka? Who?
I didn't know Bo-Katan, so maybe that's less of a thing if you're exactly like me.
So yeah, Bo-Katan actually, there is a whole lot of connectivity between Bo-Katan and Ahsoka. They know each other through the Clone Wars. So there's a whole mess of stuff that kind of gets touched on here and there. The Darksaber is definitely a part of it.
Yeah, I found that out.
We'll find out a little bit more later on. It sounds like so Disney did do they had their investor meeting, and in doing so they went, oh yeah, by the way, we're gonna go ahead and make everybody lose their minds. And so they announced that they're doing a full-on Ahsoka series, which is taking place during The Mandalorian. So there's a good chance that we're going to have some kind of a dovetail here if they play it right. Because one of the things that very specifically Ahsoka she and Bo-Katan are kind of searching for for similar people. Sabine.
Those two stories are going to dovetail, aren't they?
They should, yeah.
Yeah.
Sabine, who will potentially be brought up at some point, and Ezra, who is, based on the timeline, we know that there are a few Jedi still out there. Ahsoka is not technically a Jedi. I don't remember if she actually mentions that in the show or not, but she's stopped. Basically, she never she's not a Jedi.
So between Ahsoka and Bo-Katan, which one do you think is better than Ezra?
Definitely everybody. Potentially Grogu, which I just thought that was delightful. His stupid name, Baby Yoda's name, is Grogu. What a dumb name.
It's fairly great. I'm also impressed that you either, I'm guessing, didn't take the bait due to how good The Mandalorian is, or don't know any song lyrics to Better Than Ezra.
Oh yeah, things. I'm good. Okay.
Okay. All right. Sorry. Please continue.
Yeah, man, like the series so far has been, like I said, great. I love, and I mean, the coolest, for I think most older Star Wars fans in particular, I think the coolest bits have to kind of maybe be that at the very first episode, we get stupid sexy Oliphant wearing very, very obviously, like, as soon as he popped up, that's Boba Fett's armor.
I thought it looked familiar, yeah. And I was like,
at the very end of the episode, the little teaser of Tamura Morrison, who we know was Jango, so he's Boba Fett as well, because clones. That was incredible. And then to see them build off of that and finally give us, we got a sequence where, wow, that's the Boba Fett we've all wanted to see. Just decimating stormtroopers.
Shattering stormtroopers.
When he hit that dude in the face and the helmet shatters off, like, yup, that was rad.
And they didn't double him either, is what I love. Or if they did double him, they doubled him with the dude that had the same size paunch.
They definitely they doubled him with well, I mean, he's a clone, so he's
been very doubled. Dude, so, okay, yeah. The scene where they're trying to decide who's going to go into the mining thing, and Mando looks at Boba and he's like, "Let's just say they might recognize my face."
Yeah. Perfect. It was
still
so good.
Laughing. about that. Oh man.
And I gotta say, I think that so there's one more episode to go before the season's over.
Oh, is that it? Okay, I thought
so,
maybe
yeah.
it was 2 or something.
I think it's just the one. There might be, but I think it's just the one. I gotta say that while I've said I think every episode has been fantastic, they've all done a great job. That last episode, man, who knew Bill Burr actually had that in him? Straight up, not only Bill Burr, but I want to give a shout out to phenomenal character actor, tons of horror movies. If you're a horror fan, you may recognize him most recently from Mandy or 3 from Hell. Richard Brake popping up as that.
I'm gonna guess the Imperial.
The
Commander
Imperial,
guy.
the Imperial. But man, there's that moment where Bill Burr has a couple of, number one, he has one moment. There's one kind of like diatribe he has while he's in the tank with Mando. And that was written just for him, because it's totally a rant that he does where it's the Mando will take the helmet off. But it's like, and he talks about how you've got your principles, but when do you bend your principles? And it's such a Bill Burr thing, like, of course you'll bend your principles when you get to a point where you've got to do this, everybody does. There's no such thing as being stuck like that. And to follow up with that, like him almost having PTSD, like having such a great moment listening to the Imperial talk to him and not wanting to see him in the first place, like recognizes him. And then here's a fun little tidbit for you that went past me. And I totally found out just a little bit later, like maybe 2 hours afterwards, somebody noted it, and I had to go back and then re-dig into this. They've now brought in Battlefront 2 as an actual part of... No, so...
How so?
So he mentions during the diatribe and the discussion with the Imperial, what gave him kind of PTSD is Operation Cinder, which is how Iden Versio and Inferno Squad kind of make their decision to no longer be Imperials, is during Operation Cinder, when the Imperials turned on everybody, including their own people, and killed a mess of themselves.
Interesting.
So that's kind of fun. And I'm curious because the woman who played Iden Versio, she is in TV and movies. She could totally make it into this show.
Yeah.
Like
very, very good. In fact, in The Way Back, if you haven't watched that yet.
I have not, actually. That's pretty great. That's cool.
Also, probably her biggest part so far.
Maybe her biggest part was probably from The League, honestly.
Yeah,
that's where most people know her, is because she was Shiva Kamini Somakanda Kram. But Ming-Na Wen, I love that she got brought back with the caveat that, well, now she owes Boba her life. That's awesome. And I love that Boba, the Slave One, like, he's everything that you could want to see of Boba Fett from everything we ever heard about him, because it was all tell no show with Boba Fett. He dies in the dumbest way, quote unquote, dumbest way possible. He dies by getting knocked into Sarlacc. Like, that's nonsense. Like, really, but it's great. It works out in the movie for him to actually, like, even more so than Django, right? Like we only get a little tidbit of how good Django is supposed to be at what he does. This is like, yeah, we're seeing Boba Fett, like, all right, I believe he is a feared bounty hunter, and maybe the most feared in the galaxy after seeing some of that,
Yeah. Okay. This is going to come back to a little bit of what you said. I feel like I'm trying to pull it all together with some of my thoughts, because they're all in there too.
Yeah, I jumbled everything.
No. I agree. It's still a blast. The first maybe 3 episodes, though, it very much seems to be aware that it's still kind of side quest, the TV show, which I think we talked about the first time around, and is fine. I mean, he literally uses the word questing like several times. So
it's always funny too how it is like a video game. It's, I'll help you if you do this for me first.
Seriously, yeah, which is fine. Like, those episodes are still enjoyable. Like that first one, yeah, with Timothy Oliphant, where or either one of them is like walking down the middle of town. You're like, this is such a Western.
Totally.
And it's amazing. Like, I don't care. It's totally fine. But there was kind of the aspect to it, it's not new, and you're not getting any of the stuff that kind of made the first season really thought-provoking in a way. Like it's kind of just fun, but you don't get a whole lot of the Mando and his identity or his religion stuff. Him and the kid are already at their spot, and then basically the episode with Ahsoka happens, and you get. And I've seen the word Easter egg get thrown around a lot, which I'm sure, and probably if I knew a lot more, like the example from Battlefront 2, that's probably a little bit more Easter eggy than not.
Sure.
But I've kind of been over Easter eggs for a little bit. Like, and maybe this goes along with the whole canon conversation too that we had, because in fact, when I found out about the Darksaber, I was talking to my nephew, and he's like, oh yeah, and then he has the Darksaber, and I guess that has a whole story thing somewhere.
Yeah.
But then it led to like talking about what's canon and what's not, and I kind of realized that I don't care anymore about what's canon. Like that used to mean so much to me, and I remember us talking about when we did the prequels show, talking about, oh, it's new canon, can you believe it? Like all this stuff. But I just want a fun story now. Kind of like canon matters so little to me. And maybe that goes along with some of the Easter eggy stuff. I don't know. But for the most part, I think there aren't actually Easter eggs. There are threads that are picked up and done with, and not even just huge threads like the Ahsoka. That's quite obviously a spin-off episode for sure.
Sure.
Like I'm positive the Ahsoka show, and I haven't watched the trailer yet, so maybe this is known.
I don't know that there is a trailer. It was just all I know is it was announced.
Okay. Well, I'm sure that at least first season of that show is going to be Thrawn, right? She's looking for Thrawn. Where's Thrawn? Blah,
well,
blah, blah.
so that's kind of part of the thing that I was touching on with Ezra, is that Thrawn. So Ezra is a Jedi, and he's one of the few Jedi that does exist in the galaxy that we definitely know is out there. Like, we definitely know there are more Force-sensitive people. There are probably more sabers out there, but Ezra counts as a Jedi, and he is, based on the Clone Wars, probably with Thrawn. I'm wearing
the reverse flash.
I'm wearing reverse flash socks right now, actually. He is with Thrawn. So she's not really searching for Thrawn as much as she's probably searching for Ezra.
Okay, well, yeah, I mean, I just mean that's obviously not going to be covered in The Mandalorian. Like that's
very likely not.
And that's what I mean, not an Easter egg. It wasn't like Ahsoka shows up and she's gone, which she's getting her own series, so that it wouldn't be that. But it seems like whenever they do pick up these threads, these extended universe things that were tossed aside during the last round of movies, more or less. And that could have just been an announcement to get people, on board, which probably didn't work.
I feel like they got more people off board on that than.
But they're given weight, and it all leads back to what I think really cements this show for me. Because, and speaking of the prequels again, this is probably the wrong way to do it. Speaking of getting people off board, the prequels, even throughout then, like, it was new canon. It was crazy, and we talked about, we're willing to give them a lot of leeway for all their faults here and there. Like, we can still watch the prequels and enjoy them. That's how screwed up we are. That's level of fandom there, tick mark.
Right.
And even with those, there was always this sense of preciousness. Like the original trilogy had still that feeling of Lucas as renegade almost, like, he did it outside the system. He did it with all these, kind of ragtag ideals of sorts, And then we get to the prequels where and he's been very gracious to his fans, and I'm not a Lucas hater in any sense, but
he is the system.
There was still this feeling, this feeling of preciousness to it. Like, it didn't belong to the fans, no matter how much he said that, right? It was still his vision and his thing. He was going to go back and fix them all and redo them in ways that he liked, it seemed like, most of all. With Mandalorian, I think we finally can say we own the thing again, or maybe for the first time, right?
Sure.
And it's because it's made by one of us, essentially. Like, I would consider Favreau and
I mean, you've really got a more. I mean, Favreau definitely is the guy that makes this work as a TV series, but you definitely have to give a ton of credit, if not maybe more, in terms of where things go, to Dave Filoni, because he's the guy that without him, the Clone Wars cartoon is nowhere near, that story doesn't get fleshed out anywhere near as interestingly as it did.
And Clone Wars is another great example, like super well received for a ton of different reasons. You know, I've at this point, I feel like heard more about the Clone Wars than I have seen of the Clone Wars, actually. So,
probably, yeah.
The fact that they've brought that, they knew what to bring to this, like, it just really makes the show feel like it's for us, if not owned by us in a way. And like it's down with sharing ownership, not here, let me tell you another story, you know, like looking down upon.
This seems like this is this show is a show that's basically Star Wars fan service to TV program, but done the perfectly right way.
Yeah. Fan service almost, it doesn't fit, because fan service stuff, you think of more Easter egg type stuff. Like, here, I'll throw this in there. Fans are going to love this, but there's no like real.
This is like the fans that want the Easter eggs are going to love this. The people who don't care about the Easter eggs still going to love this if they like Star Wars. Oh, you don't like Star Wars? You're probably going to like this because it's also a Western. Oh, you don't like Westerns? Well, it's a space opera. Keep going. We'll figure it out because you're going to like it. Yeah,
it's super good. And to answer a few more of yours, the Bill Burr turnaround, I completely bought.
Totally.
Which he does not end his first episode as a good guy in any sense. Like, he betrayed. Like, I didn't think he was redeemable by the end of that episode, really.
Yeah.
Like, he's fun to watch and he was a fun character, but it wasn't like, oh, they're going to be friends again sometime. Totally bought. Like, they did it in that episode. I'm like, okay.
Sold on that for sure. Not enough. I can't believe they didn't bring Clancy Brown back, though. That's the real.
And yet I just saw him in a Star Trek, so maybe I'm okay for a little bit.
Oh, all right. Never mind then.
Because basically around that time too, with Bill Burr, like, the team is together. Like, when I say it's basically Side Quest, the TV show for the first 3 episodes, Ahsoka shows up, you get some more of that depth, but then also Boba shows up. So the team is assembled. It's Boba, Ming-Na Wen, I can't remember her character's name, Mando, Grogu, I guess, if you want to throw him in there, and that's the show at that point. We get more, like, in that same episode where, like, he takes the helmet off, right?
And it wasn't like, and I had issues last season. I didn't want it. Like, and I've come to the okay, fine. But this one was made even more poignant and worked even better for me because of Bill Burr's thing about your policies and policies. That's not the right word, but
principles. Yeah,
principles. Thank you. But that made it so much better. Followed by that sequence. There's like a little bit of like okay, I know he's got everybody like paying attention here. He's got the team watching his back from the outside, but there's that, like, he doesn't have his Beskar. He doesn't have his jetpack. Let's see what Mando is actually capable of. And that was also pretty rad.
And that's what I mean. We're back in it. Like, at that point, the show is everything I want it to be, because we're having these questions about identity, even through Bill Burr and his kind of transformation type thing, about principles, about all the stuff that was interesting the first season. Like, oh, I didn't know. Oh, man. And I didn't know that the Mandalorian thing was like a religion. And then to find out that they're like a break off bunch of zealots.
Yeah.
Like, we get it all. And then it keeps going with Boba. And my last question with Boba is, in fact, he betrays them all at some point, right? Do we trust Boba yet?
I don't. So here's why I don't think he betrays them, because he's number one, he's already made a commitment to Mando to make sure he's safe and he gets the child. Maybe Boba it does, but at some point, but to me, he's a bounty hunter. Money is the thing that talks more than anything. And
I think that's kind of what I mean. Yeah, because he's in nothing I have ever seen or read. Is he redeemable in that sense? Does he even show with principles? Like, I feel I just don't know if I'm ready. Yeah.
What we do know is he's not going to be. I mean, he's not going to get killed by by Mando. Like Boba's gonna go boba off somewhere, have some tea, boba tea. See,
I just feel like, and that would fit for the season ender too.
I'm curious if it's Boba or Fennec. Her name is Fennec Shand or something.
Ming-Na Wen, that's
yeah.
her. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't want to see Boba, but
me neither, right? Like enjoying the trip at this point, enjoying who he is at this point. But yeah, I guess we'll see.
We gotta see.
That would have been nice to do this show with the whole season in the pocket, but
I like it because it means that the next time we get together, we'll
do 30 minutes on just the final episode. Yep, that's great.
All right. Yeah. Sounds good.
So maybe we get off our quick hits at this point. I don't know which one of us hit that ball. So I don't know which one of us.
So I'm gonna bash it over to you.
All right. So let me catch up on a few of these. I repeatedly want to mention Better Call Saul because I'm a good human.
Sure.
We are one episode away from the final episode of the latest season, and while I maybe don't have as much or as grand things to say as I did last time we talked, I don't even know if that was the last TV volleyball, but go back and listen to all the superlatives I used to talk about that show the first time around. They are still in effect, and it is better than Breaking Bad and one of the best shows I've ever seen. Keep going. There you go.
All right. I'm gonna wrap up a long-standing one. Been waiting for this one for a long time. Gotham. Finally finished it all the way through.
What?
Ended the series. And number one, I will say this series will definitely get a rewatch from me. It'll totally sit in the pantheon of, like kind of like Bones did for a really long time. Numbers. It's just one of those shows that for as formulaic as bits of it are, everything lands for me. It's so much fun. And the final season, I think I mentioned this as I watched it, but the first season it does have some stumbling, more stumbling than any other season I think that it has, because I think it really was trying to figure out exactly what it was gonna be. And this, of course, again, you have to look at this as this is Elseworlds. So if you're going into this thinking, I know everything about Batman and this is how it should be, well, you're probably going to have a bad time. But if you can go into it and go, oh, I've read comics before and they change things all the time. Big deal. Cool.
Some would say they only change things.
Right. The show stumbles a bit at the beginning, introducing everybody, but it does get you there. And by the second season where they went, okay, villains go. They pick it up and it just never really ratchets down. It constantly builds. They constantly bring in characters from the comics. They remix some stuff. There are consistent characters. Like they at no point do any characters ever swap actors until the very final episode, which becomes a weird thing, and I'll talk about that briefly.
Go ahead.
I'll get there. But it builds up to a really great final season, and the show is not about Bruce. He's not the main character. I mean, to a degree, Gordon isn't even really the main character, though he is. It's definitely Gordon's story, but it's really more the story of Gotham City. It's really more all of how did Gotham get to where it needed Batman. And the final season, they do totally go, okay, we're going to now, like, we're going to introduce who will ostensibly become the Joker as the Joker. You get Penguin and Riddler, like at their peaks. You get Selina has gone on back and forth with Bruce. Alfred is like 100% just ridiculously awesome throughout the series.
You say, do we get like special services Alfred?
Alfred. Throughout the series. Yeah, you definitely get him training a whole bunch of
services. Secret Service,
SAS, whatever he was, MI6. I don't know, but you do get one of the things you absolutely get is him teaching Bruce throughout about things like how to fight and how to deal with things.
Oh, that's interesting. That's cool.
And it's not, and we do get the very final episode is a time jump, and the time jump is essentially you could kind of go, okay, I'm gonna stop the penultimate episode of Gotham, watch Batman Begins to where he comes back to Gotham, and then turn this on, and it kind of would fit. There's definitely a break there, but he gets the time jump of about 10 years where he disappears and he goes to wherever he goes to train, Nander Parbat, whatever. And he comes back, and the final episode is the only time we ever see the bat suit. We only ever get a glimpse of it. We see it one time. It's the very last shot of the series is the bat suit, basically him on the roof with the bat suit. One of the awesome things is that Lucius Fox is young in this show, and he is brought in very early on, and he's already like creating things, or Wayne Enterprises is creating stuff to better the world that he's also kind of passing off to Bruce to use. That definitely builds up the how Bruce can become Batman, become more than that. Raz, however you want to say it, depending on whatever episode or show you're watching, or movie.
I'm sticking with Ross.
Fantastic. Yeah, from Friends, Ross from Friends, Al Ghul.
Yep.
Ross Al Ghul and Monica Al Ghul. What happened to Phoebe?
Even Roz, like
like from Night
one
Court?
of the bailiffs from Night Court.
Yeah, it was Bull and Roz. Marsha Warfield. That was Roz.
Fantastic.
Yeah, great pull. Getting real deep here. It's just so good. The guy and Roz is great. Roz is he gives us the glimpses into why Batman is needed. Like Roz sees the visions of why and pushes Bruce. It ended in a really satisfactory manner for me. I loved seeing it. The one quibble I have, and I've mentioned this already, I mentioned it to you even when it happened, is Cameron Bykondova, who plays Selina from the very first episode to the penultimate episode, released a statement before it aired saying, I didn't feel comfortable playing a 10 years aged version of the character. So I quit and let somebody else do it. And I don't know that I buy that.
It's very strange.
It's a very strange thing to do. Everybody backed it up. The Bruno Heller said she came to me early on, said, I don't want to do that. So, you can only go by what she says. I have a hard time believing that. I'm more inclined to believe she either didn't like the direction at the end, said, I don't like the script. I don't like what you're going to do. I don't know. It didn't make a ton of sense to me, but she didn't do it. The woman
that just feels like a total agency thing to me. Like, hey, it feels like freaking Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where DiCaprio's agent's like, hey, don't play the bad guy anymore because everybody, or whatever, like, hey,
sure,
don't play an older woman. That'll mark you for.
And that legitimate concern. I mean, we know for a fact.
Yeah, Hollywood sucks. No, and it would be right. Yes, and true.
So. The woman that they swapped her out with is a weird change too, because there are some similarities like in terms of how she looks, and then there are others that are just nope. But
they didn't go with Michelle Pfeiffer.
They didn't go with Michelle Pfeiffer. I mean, they could have Irishmaned her, turned her into De Niro. I don't know what that means.
There we go.
let's now I want to see Catwoman, but Robert De Niro's face.
It's Robert deep fakes. Get it done.
Great stuff. But overall, I if you like Batman and you enjoy some of those characters, especially the villains, like the show does a great job with them and makes some of them downright terrifying. I mean, they did a fantastic job making the Mad Hatter an actual like he's a scary villain in terms of what he does and what he can do. And
everywhere else, not the scariest
because he looks exactly like the cartoon character, which I think
the Disney cartoon. Yeah, it's like one step away.
Yeah, but
I get it.
I don't. But there are some really great surprises throughout the series. Number one, the best villain that they bring in, my favorite by far, is Victor Zsasz. He's not the Zsasz that we know of yet, who's constantly cutting himself up. but we do find out he does do that, and it's really more the guy playing him. Anthony Carrigan is just hilarious. Like, he plays him like a crazy person that just is having a ton of fun.
So before he starts cutting himself up, he's quite the cut up.
Yes, I know. I liked the kid who played Jerome and Jeremiah, who are the twins that ultimately are the Joker without being called the Joker. I think that there was a couple of things preventing them from using certain names. So like Selina's never Catwoman. She's always Selina. Joker is never Joker, but he does definitely note jokes. He's everything the Joker is.
I think that would be a smart, like, Bruno Heller strikes me as the type of guy. I mean, you're right. It could be very much be licensing or whatever, but I feel like especially DC TV at this point, like, that line isn't as staunch as maybe a Marvel TV show. So sure. I feel it would be maybe a smart choice to be like, the moment we start calling him the Riddler, like, or we start calling her Catwoman, there's like a line that's crossed.
So there are characters that do get it. So so Riddler actually does take the name the Riddler, but it's taken in such a way early on in the show too, early on in the series, where he's laughed out of even using the name, and they keep just calling him Edward Nygma. They do call Oswald Penguin throughout the series, and they use it as he doesn't take the mantle. He actually hates it. People use it to insult him, and he takes it on and says, "Fine, I'm the Penguin now."
Well, that just blows my whole thing out of the water.
But you mentioned it, so it actually, now that I think about it, it makes more sense that Selina is a cat burglar, she's not that person yet. She's not Catwoman yet, and Joker isn't Joker until he becomes the Joker. And again, it's like, so there's I think maybe there's a build that because it is early on, so he doesn't have a name, so that makes sense. At
the very least, it's certainly conscious to be like, they aren't this person yet, and this show isn't about making them this person necessarily. And that would be, I would guess, probably maybe a lamer show if it was just a series of stories that got each character up until here's the one, right. And that's kind of cool that it leaves off before that.
It does. And there is some build. You get some characters. Bane shows up at the end, and arguably arguably a better Bane than Tom Hardy.
Does he sound like Krang? I feel like I ask that every time.
He doesn't. He sounds more like a human being.
Weird.
So like I said, if you like comic books, and you enjoy any of the DC characters, check Gotham out. It's fun. It's silly. It leans into some of the like melodrama that you get with a Batman character story, but it works because it's Bruno Heller doing kind of his thing. So it's fun, man. It's a super fun show, and even for some of the logical inconsistencies that occur, it's maybe one of the most interesting and enjoyable Batman Elseworld stories that I think is around. So
there you have it, the first ever recommendation of Gotham.
Yeah, we'll see if I'll come back to it again and talk about it next year.
Yeah, yes, that was not one of the other long conversations we expected to have. So
yeah,
that was a short one, and so are these. We finished the entire series of Star Trek: The Next Generation with my daughter.
Nice,
my wife.
Nice.
Third-ish time around maybe for me, and this is probably also another Better Call Saul moment where I don't care. It's one of the best shows ever made. I know you instantly say Star Trek and it's like, oh no, I don't like Star Trek. I feel like if that person would still just watch this show, it's impossible not to get into it like as just a normal TV show. The characters are fun. Like, I get sci-fi as a genre and it's not for everybody, but there's so little of that, I feel like, in here at its core, even though that stuff has always been like, I still to this day don't know a show that has better tech talk or like made up, because half of it's not made up, like
sure.
It's real science that they've fictionalized in some way. Yeah,
so would you say it's sci-fi?
In a way, it's just one of the best show, and with one of the best endings too, like one of those classic where you finish the last episode and you're just like, man, like it sits with you. affects you in a way you're thinking about it days later. It's one of the best.
I love that, man. I love it. I admit I'm one of those, I grew up definitely more the Star Wars fan. Well, and there's zero question, way more so than Star Trek. I will always be a bigger Star Wars fan, but watching Next Generation now, and we're plotting, it's so slow for me because I so many other things, but I freaking, every time I turn it on, I am just immediately engrossed in it. And I just love everything about it. It's just so fun.
Yep. So that's another one of those, another catch up that I'll just keep going with. I finally finished the Movies That Made Us, and maybe wouldn't even mention it because what we do mention of that, it's kind of like, I'm sure I've used the descriptor I love the 90s several times while talking about it.
Yeah.
And it is that type of grating documentary, I guess, if you want to qualify it as such. But I will mention it because the last episode I did watch was the Die Hard episode, and that whole series is worth that episode alone, if maybe for John McTiernan alone.
Hey, that lunatic,
just a treasure, does not want to be there. Why did he agree to do it? If he's so unhappy.
Somebody paid him or gave him a free lunch, and he was done.
He's so good. Just and I guess maybe it's because that format does kind of bring that out or work so staunchly against it. It's like he knows the type of show and format. He's seen an episode and been like, oh no, this is I'm not going to respect any of you.
I have a feeling that somebody pitched this to him as hey, do you remember VH1 and those behind the music things? And he went, yeah. And he went, what if we did that? And he went, oh,
well, you have to do it or they're going to kill one of your children. I don't know. It's weird. Okay. And he still thought about it for a while.
Wah.
But it makes that whole show. That, in fact, and I guess I'll throw this in there too. Have you seen there's a couple new episodes, the holiday movies that made us?
I did, yes.
The Elf episodes, fun enough.
So do they touch on the fact that apparently Favreau and Farrell hate each other?
Oh, no, not really.
So I don't know. I read this somewhere and I never followed up on it, and I really need to. But apparently the sequel for Elf was written right away, and it's been done for a long time, but Favreau hates Will Ferrell and just won't work with him anymore.
Really?
And
that seems weird.
It's one of those things where I almost feel like if that's true, that really speaks to something that I can't pinpoint, and I don't know what.
I don't know who the clashing personality is there. I guess
I would have to think Ferrell over Favreau.
I would almost think Favreau, but
I don't know.
It's so weird. That is weird. Yeah, and I mean, I like Elf a lot, and I think it's a very solid movie, but it's kind of, I don't know. I don't know if I like it as much as the people that really, really like it, or the people that have turned it into a holiday classic kind of like it.
I fully admit that movie has never landed for me. Daisy loved it. Ian loved it. Beth loves it. For me, and it was one of those, I went into it. I love Will Ferrell, love James Caan, love the concept, love Dave Crumbles. All the people that are in it, I like. That movie just, it is I think that movie for me might be almost the epitome of we're trying so hard to make a classic thing.
Oh yeah.
And it does. And I think that it just seeps through for me. And I go, it's just not.
The show will give you a newfound respect. The episode, some of the stuff they talk about with, oh God, what is it? Rankin. I forget the other name.
Yeah, Rankin Bass.
Rankin Bass, yes. How they're taking that as inspiration to the point where their lawyers had to make sure they were okay for a while. And the story of it did make me respect and probably enjoy the movie a little bit more. And there's some cool little tidbits that I didn't know. But yeah, I'm probably more on your side than everybody else. But I like the movie, and I'll watch it every season, whenever.
Sure.
The better episode in that group is the episode about The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Oh, sure. I can imagine that too.
Yeah.
That's, I don't know. That one is enjoyable for so many reasons.
That is a classic. Yeah. And the story, it will make it all the much better. I don't know if it's because I cared so much about the source material, but this also appears to be the most offensively done, I Love the 90s episode. It's just like some of the lines and jokes that they shoehorn into some of the actual interesting and legitimate and serious information that you get is borderline offensive. It's just stupid. You're like, you didn't need to add that.
And they do it like this. It's always that voice.
It's like you hear something cool and you're like, oh, that's neat. And then it's like followed up by like a demeaning or really stupid joke. And you're like, oh, now I'm upset at things I like. It's dumb. But it's you'll still love the episode. Like I didn't know who the voice of Jack Skellington was. And when I say that, you think, oh, I did, but now I'm not sure that I did.
Yeah, now I'm like, wait a second here, because
I thought it was Danny Elfman, and I certainly know that he sang all the songs, obviously, but the actual voice was not Danny Elfman. I guess I'm just giving away all the good stuff now. He was hired to do the voice and requested to do the voice, and Burton was like, yeah, you got it, of course. Because he identified with the character a ton at that point in his career. And I guess, I don't know how far they got into it, but when it got back, they were like, oh no, Danny Elfman can't do this. So they got now I forgot his name.
Raphael Casal?
Yeah, from Princess Bride. You will recognize him from. Anyways, not Danny Elfman was the takeaway. Thought that was interesting. That's... I have one more quick hit. This has been up on Netflix for a bit, and I finally watched the Challenger documentary. Did you watch that?
I did not. I did not watch that.
Do you have a personal objection to it? Or
no, not at all. It's
okay,
it's more something that like I remember we learned so much about it in school, and like.
Right.
Honestly, it's kind of one of those those tragedies where it's like, yeah, I mean, it's interesting, but
it hits a little close. Yeah. I mean, I would imagine we had the 9/11 conversation not too long ago. You don't watch a ton of that stuff either. I would imagine for slightly the same reason.
For me, it's like, I don't venerate stuff like that for one, but I don't. Oftentimes I find that documentaries about things like that tend to like they rarely provide any new insight that I didn't get from reading a book or already seeing seeing other things like where I learned about it. It's just so it's for me it's not really worth my time to go back and rewatch it because it's just
that's totally the case here. Unless you really want to dig into some of the personalities involved in the thing, that's where it can get really interesting. Like
sure.
That's where the point of no return happened a lot of times was with these personalities that were involved that, didn't want to turn back when there was an obvious problem. And the fact that they get them on camera and talking about it in a way, and they get a lot of people that are like, I'll regret this for my entire life. Like I should have done more. I wish I could have, tears are shed. And then you'll get a couple guys that are like, I did what I had at the time. I did what I had to do, like still just, there's one guy especially that just quadruple or like 100 doubles down by this point, when you're just like, dude, you made a mistake.
Okay, it's this ain't Nuremberg, buddy. You don't have to go that far, but
yeah. Which but yeah, so that gets interesting because you get into like the things that we have to tell ourselves or that other people have to tell themselves. Unfortunately, because you've never been in charge of NASA or whatever.
Not that you know of.
But it's also like Earl Morris light. It's very well done. It's beautiful. They up-res all that old footage in a way that looks beautiful all over again. It's very well made, very engrossing. And I have not read a book on it before and actually don't remember the moment from high school, or I guess I would have been in elementary school.
Your elementary school, yeah.
So my wife did. Like she had stories and she even like busted open a box and she has like, some of the papers that were handed out before the explosion, like to get kids hyped and be like, you're a member of the crew and whatever, junior cadet club or stuff like that.
Totally. Absolutely remember all of that stuff.
But I didn't. So I guess maybe that's why it was a little interesting, but it's really well done. And yeah, if you're interested in that type of stuff, you know exactly what it is and it's worth it and cool and neat.
Nice.
I guess.
Are you gonna watch the Disney remake of The Right Stuff?
Was that one of the trailers they let go?
No, like that. I think that's been up there for a little while. I don't know if it's done or not, but they did a remake of it or something.
I tell you what, let me watch The Right Stuff, the original, for the first time ever in my life, and I'll let you know.
Sure. I don't know. That's right. The Right Stuff. It's a TV show. They did a TV adaptation. It's instead of it just being a movie. But
this isn't just the Top Gun Maverick, right? You're not just.
No. It's not. It actually has people in. I don't know who any of these people are. But it was made.
One of them's Tom Cruise. He does movies. They're not great usually, but
he stars in them as himself 200% of the time.
I would love. I mean, at this point, he accidentally made a Right Stuff TV show and was like, "Oh no, I was doing Maverick," and then there was a split.
And then I somehow was in a spacesuit, and then somebody called me Ethan, and I went, "What?
Make a movie out of it.
Get me Brian De Palma."
You got that down, right? Oh, what if they did have De Palma back to do the next? I mean, it's not where that series is at anymore. But...
No, I would love to see them go back to that, though. I really would. The movies are, the Mission Impossible series has become the Fast and the Furious or vice versa. I'm not sure. And I don't like it. Like, I find them to be so, like, they're fun.
You didn't like Fallout?
But I really like Superman. That whole bit with dude,
True.
He was awesome in that movie. Like, the stories are just, he could be called anything. They're so tenuously Mission Impossible. Yeah. Like, it's just
they've blown up to the point of like being so expanded that they're kind of they're everything and nothing.
Yeah,
which is really just nothing.
Yeah, they're fine. I'll watch them, but after the first two, I can't keep track of who's doing what has happened, which movies do what.
After the first two, you're talking about completely different.
Well, that's when they go completely off. Like, I mean, the second one was definitely the pebble being kicked before it became a boulder. But like,
it was the last one with identity for sure.
Yeah, they all are very homogenized after anyway. 3 on. So, great job, whoever makes those movies.
I think it's you now. TV show.
I'll stick with your documentaryism, and I'll fill out this one here. On Disney Plus, there is a documentary series called Marvel 616. Have you watched any of this?
No. I saw the trailer months ago and was like, what? And then like tried to watch it and was like, oh, this isn't out yet. So, and then you sent me that little clip with Gillian Jacobs. Gillian Jacobs or Gillian Jacobs. I don't know which one.
She's the Gillian. Okay. Jillian is the X-Files.
But that's all I've seen.
So it's 8 episodes.
They drop all at once, or are they doing the?
They all dropped at once.
Interesting.
By the time I caught onto this, they were already out. But it looks like they were dropped all at once. It's a kind of interesting series where Marvel has given a variety of directors a little bit of leeway to tell stories about things that are Marvel related. So it's not inherently about anything like a specific. It's not we're not getting into like, here's the making of Black Panther, here's the making of, it's not that. It's the first episode is maybe the most interesting of all of them. And it focuses on Japanese Spider-Man and how Spider-Man was brought to Japan, how Spider-Man was turned into a TV show that has next to no relation to the Spider-Man that we're familiar with, but Stan Lee loved it. The executives at Marvel hated it. Everybody that involved in Marvel hated this thing.
Is that the show where all the memes come from?
Maybe. I more likely there was an American movie that was made, but it's not really touched on here.
Okay.
So Japanese Spider-Man is interesting for a number of reasons. I mean, it goes into how things get made in Japan, which is kind of fascinating in that Japan, and in particular, those kinds of shows were all very kid friendly. They were all kid related, and they were all toy based. Like, everything was a toy. It was a toy before it was a TV show in many cases. And Japanese Spider-Man kind of does some of that. It's actually, I didn't know this, but Japanese Spider-Man ends up being the ultimate introduction to the Transformers. Like Transformers is created based off of Japanese Spider-Man, because Japanese Spider-Man, they didn't have like, he's not Spider-Man gets bit by a spider. He's given powers by an alien from the spider planet, and he's got a Transformer that works, and then that becomes the Transformers, and it's really interesting.
Like actually a Transformer?
Yes, the actual Transformers. It's not like the show. The show is what created the Transformers that we know as Transformers. They were pulled out of something else and turned into the uniqueness that was the Autobots and the Decepticons.
So that episode goes places.
Yeah, it totally does. And one of the best parts is that they have the star of the show, both the Peter Parker, the guy that was in the stunt suit, and some of the things they had him doing.
Oh, it's a live action show.
Oh, it was. Oh yeah.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the cartoon. Actually,
no.
So wait, the Transformers came from a live action?
Yes, in a roundabout way. Yes, it did.
So we're talking like Power Rangers.
Yes,
suits and stuff, basically.
Yes, 200%.
Wow.
It's really interesting. And it talks about how it got to Japan and all that. The second episode, also pretty interesting. The second episode is the one that's actually directed by Gillian Jacobs. And I found this was kind of the in for me, was this episode based off of a short YouTube video that Joe Quesada puts out. Like he does all these weird YouTube videos where he talked to Gillian Jacobs about why she was doing this and how she got into it and all that.
Quesada's like way up in Marvel now, isn't he? Like
yeah. He's like, he's not the COO, but he's up there. So higher. The second episode is about women in Marvel, and it's a really great episode. It talks about the first artists and writers and stuff and chicks and how so many of these women made such headway in not only comic books and artistry, but in putting Marvel on the map. And some of the women that you'll know, Wheezy comes up. Wheezy Simonson is one of them that pops up in particular.
I believe it's pronounced Walter Simonson.
So really interesting. The following episode to that deals with how Marvel has expanded throughout the world. There's a follow-up episode to that's maybe the kind of, it starts going downhill a little bit from here. Like I don't know what the deal was, but they got Paul Scheer, who from the podcast.
And it's going downhill with Paul Scheer?
Yeah. So Paul Scheer, from the podcast. How did this movie get made? How did this get made? Right. He was on The League and
everything else. You'd recognize him.
Yeah, he's been around. His episode is about, I'm not real sure how this. So I guess he tried to get into Marvel, and he's written some Marvel books, but he tried to get into like bring something back, and it didn't work. And so he documented it into a degree. So I'm not real sure how much of this is actually that, and how much of this is, I've now been given money to make this, even though it's going to fail. So it's a weird thing where he finds this weird, like he's going through, he talks to a bunch of artists about forgotten characters, because there are over 1,000 in the Marvel universe.
Well, that's cool.
He settles on this small group of characters that had a short, a 5-issue run, and he wants to bring them back as an animated series with kids. And he actually so it's kind of interesting because John Hamm is in it as one of the actors that he wants to voice. And they talk about what would you do to make this character, what do you think of this character and this animation and blah, blah, blah.
Sure.
After that, it loses me. There's an episode about cosplayers, which I honestly started it and I skipped through it. It was not interesting. You're not going to tell me anything I don't already know about cosplayers. There's so many YouTube videos. You're really not doing anything here that's interesting. The next one was about toys, which is better, more interesting, but also just kind of here's how comics and toys work together and they're symbiotic, and it's like, well, no, duh. I mean, like, that's, you're again,
you want more like Marvel information or history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The final episodes are definitely better. Spotlight is called the very last episode, and I just started it. I didn't actually finish that one. The one prior to it is interesting. It's called The Marvel Method. It's really interesting because it's about a group of writers coming together to put together a particular book that's out now. And the thing that's interesting about it is it's for Iron Man 2020, and that book has bombed magnificently. Like, nobody cares about it.
Really?
Nobody buys it. It doesn't get read. So it was interesting to see.
It's got the year 2020 in it. What'd they expect? Oh God, look, tell me more about this.
It's interesting to see how they collaborated to create this and kind of put the book together. But overall, like, totally worth the time to watch. As a documentary. They range from like 45 minutes, half an hour, 45 minutes. They're not all that long. It's super cool. It's on Disney Plus. I enjoy documentaries about comic book stuff, so this was It was fun.
It looked like it was pretty well made too. Like there was some craft.
Yeah, so each one is directed and done by somebody different, but they all do look good. They're all totally fine. Beth, actually, that was the one that Beth found the least interesting, was the Gillian
really?
Jacobs one. Yeah, she was like,
The clip you sent me, man, I'll say, like, the way into it was they have her talk about Community for a while, which I love Community and I love her in it.
The thing that I sent you, I don't like. It's not. She's not really involved. Like, she doesn't play any part in.
Oh, is that clip not from the actual show?
No.
Just...
The thing with her and Joe
okay.
Quesada, that was Joe Quesada. That's just Joe Quesada interviewing her.
Oh, okay. That makes more sense.
Her thing
good.
is wholly about, like, I think she actually has a lot of talent in terms of being a documentarian. I think that she is early on in that career, and finding things that she's super passionate about and interested in, I think will hold more water for her. I don't know that this was something that she was like, I'm super into it. Like, she got into it. She's clearly interested in what's going on, but I don't think she came into it like, even in the same way that Paul Scheer did. Paul Scheer comes in and goes, I wrote comics for Marvel. I've been reading them forever. She didn't read comics until recently.
It did seem like her and Quesada met somewhere sometime and this kind of happened, or their agents did or something. And it just seemed really weird to be like, I remembered her from Community. And then she talks about Community for a while. I'm like, comic books?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So but it's still interesting. Like, I think she did a good job with it. It's, like I said, Beth, not so much, but.
Well, there was no chance I wasn't going to watch that, but hey, speaking of documentaries of the highest caliber, do you remember the TV show called Nitro Circus?
I do. I just removed all of those from my Plex server.
Who sent those to you, jerk?
I don't know, idiots.
Why'd you remove them, Matt? So there are two shows I feel like spoken of in the same breath. One that I like and one that starring Bam Margera. But Nitro Circus was always, I feel like, the friendlier version of that, but also to me, the more thoughtful version. And I'm not trying to demean things that aren't thoughtful, listen to the show. But Nitro Circus to me, and me and my wife like just stumbled upon this when we first got married, I guess is where this came from. But I always had been looking for the show and wherever it ended up to kind of show to my daughter, because they come up with their own stunts. They're wild. And yes, there's a part of me that was high school age when I attended high school.
Oh, that makes sense.
That
at least you weren't an adult attending high school, because that gets weird.
I feel like a delineation needed to be made.
Yes.
That appreciates
not a never been kissed situation.
Or a Wet Hot American sequel. I just like Nitro Circus because of the stunts they do, the characters that are in them. And yes, there's this, it's probably overly California. It's probably overly a lot of things. Like, I can see it. In fact, this all culminates in watching the Nitro Circus movie. I don't know if you knew that existed.
Yes, I did know it existed, yeah.
So I'm going to break some rules here, but that movie has like 0% on Rotten Tomatoes or something like that. Like, it's really low. but I actually like it still. And I think it's because it is so laser focused at a certain demographic that you need at least a molecule of, or it's probably just the worst. You're like, this is dumb. This is stupid. I hate this.
Sure.
And I have some of that. So I wanted to pass it on to my kids, I guess. I don't know. Anyways, we watched the whole 2 series because I finally found where they were at, and it was fun. And I think the movie actually is gorgeous. And maybe it's just because the rest of the show is not HD in any way, but the movie is... it makes such a good case for itself, I feel like. And it's not just, hey... what happens when you poop while you're running at full speed? It's like we grew up as kids. That's not in there, but that's the other show. We grew up as kids. We always wanted to do this. We brought other characters together, and it's focused around the guys and the people that are part of Nitro Circus, which I believe are still doing something on YouTube somewhere, but I think it's enjoyable.
Sure.
And it is a TV show, so it qualifies.
No, I always enjoyed watching them. There was definitely a point where it just became like I felt like I was seeing the same thing over and over again, and that's when it became
okay. It did feel like they had less ideas towards the end there.
It's kind of like I cannot understand people that are like, "Oh man, I saw Evel Knievel last year. We're going again." Like, what's going to be different?
There is totally an aspect of
he lands it or he doesn't. I mean, yeah, you're at that point, you're there not to see him succeed. You don't want to see Evel Knievel succeed. Nobody was like, yeah, dude, I hope you make this. Everybody was like, yeah, make this. Blow up. And I guess part of why I did enjoy Jackass so much was because that stuff was meant to fail. It was, but the question, but the question was not how is it going to fail? It's how bad is it going to fail? And to the point where they even mention it, there are so many, like one of the quotes that always sticks in my head, and I have said it, I use it in almost a daily thing, is Johnny Knoxville laughing about, and I don't even remember what, I think it was maybe the jockstrap slingshot, but I don't remember. All I remember is him laughing so hard and going, I don't know what's going to happen, but it's not going to be what's intended. And that is like, that's it right there. And where Nitro Circus was the opposite. It was guys that were going, okay, we want to succeed in doing something really dumb.
True.
And I think that was the big difference for me and it was cool, but it was also like, again, it started to get repetitive because there's only so much.
They did seem to fall back on some of the, like they motorbike jet skied across a lot of things.
Right.
It seemed like they kept going back to that, and it's fun. Like you do get into it because, and this again, it's got to be hyper focused because this is my life all throughout high school. Coming up skateboarding, like we all go to a spot and we're like, I'll try this, and then we literally just watch each other try that for a while, and dude, and
sure.
then that's it. Like so,
and I think,
I'm made for that, and vice versa. But
well, yeah, and I think that also, like, I think that's interesting too because it's more like you watch them and you go, oh man, I would see myself with my friends trying to do that if things were slightly different now. Like I could see myself in that position 10 years ago.
If things had gone a very different way and we met or didn't meet some very different people,
right?
That's where we would be. Look at it.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas for me, it's the I watch Jackass and go, oh yeah, no, I definitely did that. Or, oh yeah, no, I would definitely do that because I want to see, like, nothing is funnier than when people get hurt. Like it's funny when people fall,
Okay, all right. So we understand each other.
We're dotted line. We understand each other, but we're definitely not in the same subgroup.
Oh yeah, Nitro Circus. It was fun to finally finish that out because when we did find it when we were just barely married, I want to say it must have been right towards the end, or maybe we were already into reruns because it was like we saw 3 episodes and then it wasn't on at the same time anymore, and I couldn't find it again. So I was always like, you remember that show? It was such a weird thing for my wife to like too, which probably she was just doing it for me. May have done that again this time. I don't know. But again, towards the end, like it was fun to see my daughter be like, like call them out by names. It's fun to figure out to see where they are now and be like, oh man, this person always acts like that. And I'm like looking it up on Twitter and like, oh, that person's dead now. Like, oh, that person's dead too.
How did they die? Oh, yep, it was from
Nope,
this.
shouldn't have looked that up.
The circus went to Nitro.
So yeah, that's another conversation that wasn't going to be a long one, and we still have.
We got lots.
Yeah, I feel like we haven't even touched your shows. We can do this show for as long as we want. I don't care. You tell me when to stop.
Yeah, we'll get it. I'm gonna hit you with two really fast ones. They don't have to. We don't have to go too long on these.
Okay. We can do it.
We finally finished The Good Place. You finished that before we did.
This is a bad first sentence for we can do this quickly.
No. because I think number one, it's just been long enough that it's settled with me. All I can say about The Good Place is that as a self-contained, 4 seasons? Was it 4? I think it was 4 seasons.
Sure.
Maybe one of the best start to finish comedy programs of all time for me, because I can't think of too many other shows, and right now very few, like nothing is really coming to mind that start really well, had an ending that I didn't see coming, and then with a show where now you've got the crux of it, they figured out how to turn that on its head, and then did it again and again, and they did it 4 times, and then to give you or me anyways, an incredibly satisfying ending that doesn't give you all the answers. It doesn't give you everything, but it gives you a satisfying conclusion to every arc that needed to have an ending. I mean, I think Michael Schur, I don't know that he will ever have another program that good, because as much as I love Parks and Rec, it's not a start to finish, man. I hardly ever watch the first season. In fact, Parks and Rec, I usually start a couple of episodes into season 2. The Office definitely has some episodes that are duds. And I mean, he wasn't the main driving force behind it, but there are duds in that show. This one, man, he everything just
it's hard to even talk about those shows in the same breath, because The Good Place is such a, like, I can't think of another. We continue to not be able to think about other shows that work on so many levels as that show. And yeah, you're right, it's a miracle that it kept going after the first season. And you spoiled this for me, so I don't mind spoiling it for other people, because it didn't make a difference in the least. But the end of the first season is, you're not in the good place, you're in the bad place. Which
I remember we talked about it in the car on the way back to the airport. I think.
Oh, did we? Oh, yeah, maybe that's okay.
It was either from or to the airport, but I remember your reaction because you were not into it. You were not.
That's right, because I had fallen off, and I was like, okay, you did it. Like, I'm going back because of that only, and it still took me maybe a full year, but when we did, we couldn't stop and then finished before you did even. Yeah. But that it kept going is a complete testament to those writers who didn't just sit on that twist for, as long as they could after that. That didn't just keep, and maybe this is the differentiator, not to take away from The Office or the Parks and Rec, which is probably a little bit less of this, but in fact, Parks and Rec is maybe where Megan Amram and friends were percolating this idea of a show for The Good Place that didn't just go forever, which The Office, as much as I like it, and as much as I like the later seasons even that nobody seemed to, they were just going to keep going, There were wheels that were spinning, totally. Yes, they were just going to keep going. That's an idea that does that. Like, The Good Place never, if it was an idea that was supposed to do that, they were not content with that, and they would switch it up and turn it into something else and go so deep on some of those things. And by the end, when it ends, and then like there's 4 more episodes, right? You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, totally. And those 4 episodes, you're right. Like, they tie up the right things and they leave the other things hanging to the point where you're like, oh, this wasn't about that. Like, I could see some people watching the end of that and being like, well, what happens with this? Or they didn't talk about this. We're like, yeah, the show wasn't about the situational comedy type thing. That wasn't about that stuff. So check it. Yeah. And I think you make an excellent point where I think the percolation during Parks and Rec, and I think it really, like, if you watch those 3 shows kind of back to back, which would be very hard,
the one thing that I see consistently coming out of Michael Schur's characters, and again, The Office is a little more dotted line than it is like a direct connection because he wasn't as hands-on with it, but The Office has like character growth at a snail's pace. And even towards the end, you barely get any growth from anybody. It just doesn't happen all that much. Parks and Rec, you get character growth at a much better pace, but not really until about the 3rd or 4th season, where things actually start happening for Leslie outside of the Parks office, like when she finally gets to be a city council person, and then Ben, they meet, it's basically when the world of Pawnee finally becomes bigger, those characters do grow, and they grow at a pretty good rate. Tom is like maybe one of the best examples of the show, with April being the clearest example of the show. But this, from start to finish, like they knew how to grow the characters every season per episode in logical ways, and being able to do that while maintaining who those characters were at every level is so impressive to me. The fact that, Kristen Bell's character at the beginning is self-centered, selfish, all of that. There's still certain aspects of that character that exist at the very end, but she recognizes the changes that she's made, and it's so well done.
Yep. All-time great.
The other one, quick, because we just finished it. We finally finished current season. So we're all caught up with Brooklyn Nine-Nine. They're having the baby.
Bless your heart. We should mention that show it's like, because it's the number one and we watch it all the time and it's the best it ever was. We're like, we can't talk about it again, can we?
I fully admit, I can go back and Brooklyn Nine-Nine is another show where there's some Flanderization happening. And so I think Brooklyn Nine-Nine has done that to a degree with certain characters. Terry, I think, is actually the biggest offender of it, where and they did it from the beginning, but it's gotten to a point throughout the show where it's like, with the whole, like, him being a muscle-bound idiot, and even though we know he's not, it's like,
they might have been doing the least with him than anybody,
which is sad, because he had one of the more poignant episodes being in the like 4th season or so, maybe it was earlier, with the racist interaction with the cop,
right?
The other cop, like they have so much to work with there, but they've also, like, they've spread it around too. I think the character that is least impacted by any form is actually Rosa. Like, she's grown leaps and bounds from where we knew her. But there's, again, even to a degree, Holt is a little bit, but that's who he is as a character. So it's a thing, but the overall, like, this show, I still love every episode of it. I don't think there are any real duds for the show for me.
Can't think of one.
And where they've gone with it and the growth that they've given. In particular, I do love the growth of Jake and Amy together. Like, they're a great example of taking the characteristics of their opposite characters. So Jake is becoming slightly more attuned to things that Amy would have done, being a little more anal about things. Amy is becoming slightly less anal about things.
Just about all the Amy jokes kill me, man. Like, about the binders and just
and that's, again, it's I love that you have moments like when Jake first meets her father, and he keeps going outside because he's got a binder out there that has all the information about him, But Brooklyn Nine-Nine killed it. I love that ending. I love them having a baby. I'm not usually a big fan of that coming into the show. It's the cousin Oliver thing. It usually weighs stuff down, but those characters, like those two together, I think that's a great dynamic because of how this is going to impact the rest of the squad. And I can see, like I'm looking forward to the episode where, they're going to have to leave the baby with Holt, and Holt is like, I don't know what to do with this. Like, what are you doing, small child? And having Kevin there, like them trying to not fawn over the baby, but try to figure out, what do I do with this thing? Like, that's hilarious to me. So,
I will be curious to see if they do bring the baby in any real way, because Sure specifically is known to kind of skip over such things that will make it a different show. Like, I'm sure the baby will be there for some jokes, for some bits. I don't know if it's going to figure in so hugely, because think about Parks and Rec again, where at the end there's the time hop. One of the reasons specifically because it's right after they have the kids, and they're like, well, we didn't want it to be that show. So they time hop to when the kids are basically old enough to be out of the picture more.
And both of the shows run into the situation of they smartly they wrote it into the show because she was actually pregnant. They were both actually pregnant. So, okay.
So yeah, I'll be curious to see if they actually bring that in especially Brooklyn Nine-Nine, where I feel like it is
Nikolaj.
You're right. See, good point. They bring him into the show just enough, although they could say Nikolaj a few more times. Still not hearing it.
I feel like I'm saying what you're saying. Nikolaj.
It's a fantastic show.
So that's what I got for B99.
Okay, let me turn this into a quick one, because it wasn't, but I know I've talked about it before, the TV show Humans.
Yes.
It had its final season in 2018, I think, and we finally just finished it off. It's a British show. It's about service robots. The world is populated by them, and they become sentient, essentially. Essential sentience. And it's a drama. Like, it's a drama. Like, you're not going to get a whole lot of comic relief or tension breakers. Like, it lives on tension. It breathes it. It, especially in the third season, like, that's its lifeblood.
How-to tension.
But for all of that, once you get in the mood and once you're prepared for some philosophy, like for some real, like, thinking about artificial intelligence and humanity, you're gonna get some good stuff. And I think the show itself wraps up in a beautiful way. Maybe expectedly, it deals with racism. I'm trying to think about what not to spoil, but I don't. Again, it's not like you can spoil something that's like, let's analyze this for an hour, like
sure,
or a season or 3 seasons. But when they become sentient, there is some amount of chaos that happens and people die because of it. So there is a split. So you get a lot of politics in the third season that are like, whoever did this should be corrupt. And because the robots have gained sentience, such a hard word.
Yes.
Is sentience essentially.
R.I.P. Sean Connery.
You're right. That's a good in. That's what do they call the line you need to start the impression? Yes. Now I have no idea where I was going.
Deal politics.
R.I.P. Yes. So the final season, you get a lot of that. You get a lot of the politics of racism, people that are like, we need to siphon off, get rid of the robots. So there are some also bad robots because they have agency at this point, so they can choose to be bad, and they've been slaves, and people are reacting racistly to things, so they react in kind. So it's very complicated and does every bit of those issues justice, I think. I could see some people having issues with maybe 2 things. Both the maybe surface level nature of some of the things, because it's a complicated, like I say it does them all justice because I feel like it addresses them all appropriately. But since it is so many things, I can see some people that are, I don't know. I just feel like, especially since it is so important and inflammatory sometimes, like some people might be unsatisfied with some of the ways that, or some of the things that it could delve into more. But since it's working with so much, I'm like, the fact that they touched on it and they're cognizant of all these different elements, like I was pretty darn satisfied. And by the ending, it has one of those come together moments where you're like, okay. And that's the other thing where I think people might be unsatisfied, is where it's not a happy ending. Like I wouldn't qualify it as that, but I could see some people being like, oh, well, yeah, that'd be nice if that happened,
Sure.
And I don't think it's quite that bad myself. I think it's worth it. But yes, it can be, if you're not ready for it, you're just going to be bored. Like sit down to think and you won't be disappointed.
Nice.
And I don't have anything left except the other biggie.
Okay, I've got so many, so I'll blow through what I can. Okay, so I've got a couple here that I do definitely want to talk about. Community, I never watched the show really when it started. I episodes here and there. I was familiar with all the characters, so I kind of know what goes on. I never saw the last season. We're in the tail end of the 3rd season right now. I think Troy leaves pretty soon. And I can already tell that my interest level in the show is going to wane greatly because I really, really like that character.
Well, I want to say the 3rd season was the first with Dan Harmon away. And then he didn't come back until the final season, I believe.
I didn't hate this season even a little bit. Like I there was plenty of stuff in there that's funny. It doesn't hold to a candle in terms of the quality that the first 2 do, but I think it was good. It's fine.
Yeah, I just mean the changing is not going to stop. I think at this point,
right. So I'm going to keep watching it. I'll finish it out because again, didn't ever see the whole thing, and there are characters that I do genuinely really enjoy seeing. I don't know that I will get tired of the Dean at any point. he is always a delight to see, especially with his stupid outfits are the best. And
Jim Rash,
Jim
right?
Rash, Academy Award winner Jim Rash. Let's
really?
Not forget. Yeah, he won an Academy Award for writing. He wrote it was a George Clooney movie. He and Nat Faxon. It begins with a D. Not The Departed. The
Descendants.
The Descendants.
He wrote that?
Yeah, he and Nat Faxon, famous for. He was on a TV show, but Nat Faxon, I best remember him from the Broken Lizard movies. He's always funny in those. So Community.
I'll be interested to hear your thoughts. I don't think I've ever been able to speak with anybody about the tail end of Community. So.
Oh yeah. I'll definitely be finishing it up. The other thing that I'm watching here is I'm doing my probably 100th rewatch now. I mean, this is I know 4th, 5th, 6th, 12th. It's definitely up there.
Can I guess?
Sure.
Okay, it's either 30 Rock.
Nope. It's something you've never seen. And it actually infuriates me every time the more I watch it now, the more infuriated I get.
Okay. I've got nothing.
Scrubs.
Oh, I'm an idiot.
Scrubs is it is legitimately one of the very few programs that there are a number of episodes that I cry at. Period.
That should have been my first guess.
Straight up, stupid. I straight up cry at certain episodes. Like, and I know it's coming, and I've told Beth, like, when the episode comes on, I go, I'm gonna cry at the end of this.
And then you start, and she's like, "But it hasn't started."
And then I start crying. No, it's there are so many episodes that. This show is criminal that you have not seen it because for here are the reasons. Here I'm
this cannot be. This needs to have more substance to it than another way you try to get me to watch the show.
This show has, at the time, anyways. I don't know if it's still the case, but. At the time, it was hailed as one of the most medically accurate programs, period. Like they have the medicine right. The doctors that they used for the guy who created the show was friends with 2 doctors that are the basis for the characters. The characters grow every season. So one of the best parts of this show is that it not only grows the characters organically, but they use the timing of the seasons in how they're written to grow the characters organically, and in doing so, it's the show starts with him they're brand new to they just graduated med school. They're out of med school. This is their first year at a teaching hospital. So they're not even like they're not doctors yet. They're not attendings. They're residents or whatever, or they're attendings or whatever. I don't remember what it's called, but they're that for the first couple of years. Then there's the whatever season. I think it's the 3rd season. At the end of that, or the beginning of the 4th season, they're now doctors, and so they have a totally different dynamic with all of the characters that they've already been with. All of the characters remain throughout the show. The main characters never change. Nobody leaves. Nobody dies.
Spoiler.
But they have so many side characters that do have massive impacts that you fall in love with as their recurring characters. Their They're just a single episode of that particular person's illness is the main kind of driver. There are so many funny like visual gags while also having so many just powerfully sobering moments that so many medical people have said that's reality. That's the truth right there. And it's not Grey's Anatomy. It's not that. It's something very different. But it is, the comedy is spot on. The characters are amazing. They're so much fun. And again, I've watched this show so many times, and even Beth sits down and watches this show and still laughs. It is a comedy first. It definitely has some severe dramatic elements going that follow through. And it's not just like drama in terms of the medicine side. It's not just sadness for certain characters that are admitted and die or have a whatever. This deals with relationships on a very real level. It deals with self-esteem on a very real level. It deals with everything, like everything you can think of. Like, this show hits it in some way, and it's so good.
It is the all show.
Yeah, I mean, I fully admit, like, I love this show start to end, even though the final season is like this weird cluster of a mess that when you understand how it happened, you realize it's not really like it's the Yahoo season ostensibly. It's the show got canceled. Oh. They actually wrote an ending to it. It ends, and then and that was on NBC, and then ABC was like, we want to do it, and then they took the show and they turned it around, and it's doesn't have all the same characters at that point. Some of them leave, some of them whatever, and it's not as good.
Oh, this is the one you were talking about. I had no idea existed.
Yeah, it's essentially it was basically med school. It's called Scrubs, but it's basically Scrubs med school, and they become teachers and stuff, and it's the thing. But
it's the college years. Scrubs.
Yes,
the college years.
Yes, basically exactly that. The only thing that I will say that I really that bums me out is I'm watching it now on Hulu, and I've got to get hard copies of it because there are a number of licensed songs that are not in this, and the songs they replaced it with are not as impactful. And the show was the soundtrack actually is really integral to the show. The songs were really, really specifically chosen for a number of reasons.
Is that something you read, or is that something when episode
it's
4 of season whatever started playing and you were like, this is not the song that should be?
I definitely knew. Okay. There were episodes because I've seen the show so many times. There are just certain things where that's not the right song.
I hate when that happens. The licensing stuff, especially behind music. Like, I forget there's a billion instances of that happening and you wouldn't know it. But now I can't remember the movie. But yeah, and you can't find the original. Like, they're not. I mean, you can, but you're a criminal.
Right. So this is one where if you can find it on a DVD that's, the older DVDs or Blu-rays, or other ways, maybe try to watch it that way. But even without those, if you've never seen the show, it probably won't bother you as much. You won't recognize the
Sure. Yeah.
The next one I want to talk about real briefly.
I just want to say about Scrubs. I'm never gonna watch it. I'm just kidding. I just want to see what you do.
This is like we're at a point now that this is a major point in our relationship where this could be a deal breaker.
No, it's obviously on my list and has been for some time. And it's never that I don't like to see you frustrated. It's just that
no, yes, you do.
The list is so long, and it's more of an issue of prioritization. So I know
if I had to prioritize TV shows for me that I've recommended, this would easily be at the top at this point.
So okay, so I'm watching this before I watch Gotham.
Yeah,
then
definitely.
Okay. All right. I will move it up a tick.
This is
now above Gotham.
Let me put it this way. Your wife may enjoy Scrubs. So
I have a feeling my daughter would like it quite a bit also, actually.
She very well. Yeah, it's fun.
In fact, this is bad news. We are a show I didn't mention because so I did finish the second season of Cobra Kai, which last time we did TV volleyball, I had just watched the first season and was over the moon with it. Like loved every second of it. So had been like I did all of season 2 the week after we talked about it. So it's been a while and I did it very quickly. So I almost wasn't going to mention it except for the fact that I got my family to watch it. And I was like, we got to watch this. So we watched all of season 1 and 2 again since then and more recently. So I could talk to them. And I will say season 2 keeps it going.
Does it?
Super love that show. And there are episodes where freaking Zabka like pulls it out of his acting like
repertoire.
Yeah, or something. And to hear the guy talk, to watch interviews, like he is very much one of those serious actors. Like he's one of those guys where like an interviewer will ask him just the stupidest acting question, like they don't understand anything about the business or even the art form. Like I get the feeling he's totally one of those guys, and he'll answer it in a way that's like, well, I'm an actor and serious answer. So he's one of those guys, which I love. And seriously, like. You wouldn't think, even after the first season, that he necessarily had it in him.
Yeah, he's fine.
Because while I love him in the show, it's not like I'm like, whoa, this dude's like, like in fact, there are times where you're like,
yeah, he's not as fine.
Yeah, like I don't know, but I'm still liking it. But no, in that second season, there are 2 episodes, especially there's one where he's like telling Miguel about the day he wasn't there for his son's birth. And I'm like, this is phenomenal, dude. Like, dude can act. Like, absolutely. Like, it's there.
Beth really enjoyed the first couple of episodes.
Oh man, dude, I don't think you've seen the second season.
I haven't.
Right?
I haven't. No, yeah. I haven't yet.
Totally worth it, man. And then there's another episode called, I believe, Cobra Kai Never Dies. And they bring back all his buddies from the movies. One of them has cancer. Did you see that episode?
I have not, but I love that they did. And he is the guy who's got cancer, the guy that's going to be in a body bag.
It's so good, man. That episode is straight up good.
So here is something fun for you. There is some pretty strong rumors that because she's kind of finished when she finished up with the boys, that Elizabeth Shue might be coming back.
Well, dude, I won't tell you how the second season ends.
I know how it ends because that's
okay.
how I found out about it. Somebody
I would not be surprised, especially at the point, like, I feel like the show has reached. It's funny because I heard people tell me it was good when it was a YouTube original, and I'm like, yeah, I'm sure it is. Like, how could it not be? This is fun, Karate Kid. But it's legitimately good. And yes, I've also seen people being like, this is the least realistic thing I've ever seen. Yeah.
Did you watch the first Karate Kid? Hello?
Yeah.
Like, there's zero realistic going on there.
But, yes.
How many kids did you know in high school that were just running around karateing people?
Seriously,
that was
dude. The last episode is gold. But the reason it came back, because we were watching that every night as kind of a 20-minute when we didn't have time to do a Star Trek, and now we're done with Star Trek and Cobra Kai. So
Scrubs,
I have a
man.
feeling Scrubs, yeah.
Give it a shot. It's solid. Okay, so
I'm disappointed that it might, like, all of what you said that couldn't have been towards getting me to watch it again finally might have just worked. That's disappointing.
Okay, so I've got 4 more, including our big one.
Boy. Yeah, just go.
So Schitt's Creek, Netflix. I didn't want it to end. I was so sad when it ended.
Whoa, done. Finished the whole thing.
Finished the whole thing. Ended.
How many seasons?
In the most delightful way. I think it was 5.
Wow, dude.
Maybe 6.
You really mainlined that thing.
Beth was super into, and I like as soon as we started watching it, it's a show that starts off where, like, wow, I don't like these characters really. They're not great people. They're not okay. Well, they're not that okay. So they're all right. Oh. And it just, it's another show where number one, growth is amazing in the show. They all of the characters grow. The side characters some of them are as equally as funny as the main cast. I mean, they are the way they fill out the town that they live in. Fantastic. And it's same people throughout. The levies, there are so many of them, apparently, like 3 of them minimum in this show,
and yet not enough.
The show also does, apparently, I didn't know this, there's a round table that they did for the show on Netflix, And one of the major things that they talk about is gay relationships and how unbelievably beautifully well written the relationship is in this show. It is the best relationship period maybe of all time.
I don't think I know what the show is about at all.
It's about a family. It's just about so okay, here I'll give you the rundown of the show.
No, that's just
it's real fast. Eugene Levy was a video store magnate. Basically he had Rose Video. It was Blockbuster. Video goes away. He loses all his money. His wife was a former major soap opera star. Kids are his kids. One of them is gay, and he doesn't. He's rich or was.
Oh, he's a rich gay.
Yeah, yes. The daughter the daughter is kind of a dinger who floated around and is just she's self-absorbed. The family is ultimately kind of a self-absorbed family, and they're forced to move into this tiny hotel in a town it's on Schitt's Creek basically, and the Schitts are one of them is played by Chris Elliott, that's their last name. Yeah, he's the mayor of the town. His name is Roland Schitt. That's his name.
Wait.
Chris Elliott? Chris Elliott's name is Roland Schitt.
That is the least surprising thing I've ever heard in my life.
And so the show is about them figuring themselves out without, what is their life without money? They have nothing now. They have nothing.
This is more on me, but I'm getting severe Arrested Development vibes.
Oh, totally. 100%. It's not the writing is different, but the feel is totally there. It is top to bottom again, just great, just fun, and it ended, and I was so sad to click on the final episode, but it wrapped up everything as it needed to wrap up. It was very satisfactory. I really enjoyed it, and this is 200%, zero question. It's that funny. This is definitely a repeat show. Like, this goes into the Scrubs 30 Rock laundry list of, yep, turn that on, watch it, just let it run. Totally easy.
You are minimum fourth person. Like, it must have been because the show ended, I feel like, is where the uptick came from, but just everybody everywhere is like telling me about this show.
You'll love it. You will find so many funny bits in there to just die laughing at.
Which I inadvertently gave you the way to sell me any show. It's like Arrested Development and then I automatically watch it.
Eugene Levy were in it. And Catherine O'Hara. I mean, come on. And I'll be honest, the biggest surprise in this show for me was Dan Levy. I didn't know and he is freaking funny.
Has he done anything before this? Because when I first saw him like on the poster or whatever, I was like, oh, not knowing, I said Eugene Levy has a son.
Yes, and then same thing. Yes, same thing. And I was like, what? And nope, he's different than his dad in every respect in terms of the comedy, but he definitely has the comedy gene.
Are Eugene Levy and Catherine O'Hara married in real life and make kids? They are, right? You're shaking your head, but I don't understand.
It seems
like
they
are, right?
Yes.
This is, I don't. Well, just have to move on.
The next show, we're halfway through the first season on this, and I'm just loving this. This is way up my alley. Beth is digging it too. But she doesn't have the background I have. It's called Halt and Catch Fire.
I've heard of it.
It was an AMC show. The show has stars Scoot McNairy.
Beautiful.
His name's Scoot McNairy, but the main guy is actually Lee Pace, who
Ronan.
The Ronan, exactly. Weird to see him not in makeup at all. It's so bizarre to see him like as a normal person.
Well, Beth isn't watching the right period pieces because
we'll get there.
The moment Candy finds out that that's who Ronan is, she's like, "Oh, is that Lee Pace?" I'm like, "Yeah, who's Lee Pace?"
Yeah, wait, what?
And then she's apparently been watching it for a while.
So Halt and Catch Fire is a show that takes place in the early 80s, maybe the very late. It's I want to say it's the early 80s. Okay. And again, we're only in the first season. It's 4 seasons long, and then as far as I know, it's over. But the show is about this Texas company called Cardiff Electric that would go on to basically try to clone IBM's PC before, and this is way before PCs were a thing. Like, this is early 80s, so PCs were just existing.
Oh, is this based on a true story?
Yeah,
Okay.
it totally is. And so the story of the first season is this guy played by Lee Pace who comes to Cardiff Electric and gets this great idea to let's do this. So he gets a couple of people throughout to the Scoot McNairy and this and Mackenzie Davis, who the only thing I know her from is she was in the most recent Terminator. She was the other Terminator, the blonde-haired, short-haired.
Oh, sure. Dark Fate.
Yes. Yeah. She was the blonde Terminator.
Okay.
She's a programmer that's like got nowhere to live, and they're like, okay, you're gonna write the BIOS. This other guy who's already been in trouble with the law that works for Cardiff Electric that wrote this paper, he's gonna reverse engineer how the IBM PC works, while she reverse engineers the BIOS, and then they've got to figure out how to not do that illegally, while doing all of this completely illegally. And so far this show is fantastic. Like, I am so glad I've been watching this. Really enjoy it. It's funny, but it's definitely more along the lines of it's a serious kind of show. But the whole story behind it is really interesting. They did a great job with the look of the show too. It feels like they're in the 80s. Like
Love that.
It's really solid.
Where's that? Is that a Netflix?
Netflix. It's on Netflix. Yeah,
Netflix,
it was an AMC show.
AMC. Gotcha.
Yeah. So, floating around there, it's a whole 40 episodes in toto. It's only 10 episodes per season. So, but I am super, super interested to see how this show shakes out. Really good.
Okay.
That's going to lead me to the last of the big ones. And this is one where I wish you had watched it. I hope that you'll
Are you going to do Scrubs again? You're going to do it twice, aren't you?
Hopefully, the wife might like it because it is a period piece, but it's the 50s. So I don't know if that's too early or too late for her. If she's like,
it doesn't start with a 1-8. Yeah,
I'm not interested. Okay. But the Queen's Gambit, Anya Taylor-Joy, who I knew her from the start from The Witch.
Sure, right.
Most people probably now know her, unfortunately, from The New Mutants.
Oh no, is she in that too?
She's the main character, I think. Yeah.
Oh boy, did you watch that yet?
Not yet. It's.
We both have that.
Yeah, it sounds like a disease. We both have that. So the show is written based on a book, and it's about a girl who is essentially a chess prodigy. She's an orphan, and the show is about her growth as not only going from being an abandoned child into being adopted by a couple that didn't necessarily want or really like understand what was involved, to becoming a national phenomenon in chess, to potentially a world phenomenon in chess. And somehow, like, I enjoy chess in general, and I actually like movies about chess. The Searching for Bobby Fischer, I think, is actually a really great movie. Documentaries about chess are interesting to me. This movie or this show was one of those, like, every time it ended, I was like, what? It's over? How is this over? Get to the next episode. Let's just go. Go.
You mainlined this one too.
We mainlined this one. Yeah, we went real fast. Real great build up. The ending is really fun. It's a solid story. Really like her. She is a fantastic actor, Anya Taylor-Joy. That girl is got a real great future ahead of her. The people that pop up, there's some people that you'll recognize in the show potentially. One of them in particular being Dudley Dursley, who's now an older guy who's weird looking, still isn't adult.
So he went from a young guy that's weird looking to an old guy that's older guy that's weird looking.
He's weird. But really great show, super fascinating. Some really good stuff in there, some really great acting from just everybody. The mother, the adopted mother is her cast was fantastic. She's great. They play off each other so well. The show deals with a lot of things, including addiction and how that can impact things. Great show. Totally worth it. That now leads us to our final. I don't know why we left the Umbrella Academy for the end, but here we go.
Because we did mention this, or I mentioned it, I think after episode 1, and me not being super enthused with the show. I love that now. Yes, you started. I don't know if because of that, but maybe mainlined it also. Like I feel like you were done with both seasons pretty quick.
Yeah, we blew through it pretty fast. Beth wanted to start it.
And so then I, in return, said, okay, I guess I'll keep going, kind of, because we started out as a family, and then I was like, oh, this doesn't strike me as a great kids thing anyways. But your microphone just fell off, so I'll keep talking, because your arm just went swinging up because it didn't have any weight left. It's a beautiful... So that the Umbrella Academy would end up as our finale of sorts, that we've both been through both seasons now and are going to talk about, it seems. Fantastic. I want you to start because I want you to tell me what happened.
My microphone
and then
fell off.
I will tell you something else.
Yeah, so I mean, I went into this not being real thrilled about it.
You didn't start it until I gave you my unfavorable. Not saying you watched it because I gave it an unfavorable-ish review, but you hadn't started watching it yet when I mentioned it, right?
Right. No. Yeah.
Okay.
Beth had heard about somebody that season 2 was really good and that they really liked. I think it was actually Vanya, which was like that was the hard. So I am not an Elliot Page fan in terms of their film history. Always every movie that they've been in, they're almost universally the thing that brings it down for me. I mean, if you really want to torture me, it's hey, let's watch Inception. Everything is bad. You're just so barring that particular issue that I had, everybody else in the show, fine, whatever. It didn't really, nothing ever spoke to me about this show like I should watch it. I wasn't familiar with the comic. So we kicked off the show and I was, all right. It was fine, kind of interesting. And as it went on, I found myself super interested in all of the characters.
Super interested, not just interested.
Super interested in all the characters. And Vanya as a character, this may be the first time I can say that I think Elliot Page does not bring anything down because the character actually is real similar to the person. Like in terms of how they're supposed to be portrayed. They're bland, they're boring, they're a little dull. And there's, of course, we do find out more about Vanya as the show progresses, and that Vanya, they throughout the opening couple of episodes, Vanya is very pointedly, as a child and as an adult, kind of treated as an outsider. We find out that Vanya has no powers until we find out that, Vanya has the worst of the powers or the strongest of the powers, and that Dad was very, very, very scared.
And suppressed her powers with medication that she had been taking, which I'll agree. And it still took 4 episodes for me, and I ended up watching this while I would work out, so it wasn't even like I was giving it my full attention. But her arc, I think, ended up being one of the more interesting ones for me. I do like that she was suppressed, and that it was by also maybe one of the other bigger draws of the series, the father, who, and when I talked about it last time, about it kind of seeming like it wanted to be a deconstruction of the superhero, but not really understanding fully what that means, or maybe even just being a good one of those. The father kind of makes it work, if simplistically, because he is one of those people. Like, he gathered all of the kids together to create a superhero team. Like, he is ostensibly
he literally goes to the families and pays them money for the children.
Yes, but then isn't a good father. Like, is a horrible father.
So, yeah.
Like, because he's bought in. And it's second season, and I guess we'll get into this, and it doesn't culminate yet, because he believes in superheroes and creating a superhero team. Like, he is the bad guy in that way. Like, he's stupid. So that's a pretty good reconstruction, because that is calling out, a lot of, which I am one of those people that can still take joy in watching a superhero team and like superheroes for being superheroes, even the classic versions of those.
Sure.
This is being a deconstruction of that, having the father be also a horrible father, be exploitative, be all of this, kind of brought me into it in the way that all the kids were reacting against that also, minus maybe Luther, who still wasn't, that was part of his journey.
Because he was number one.
Yes.
Because he's the golden boy.
Good point. They're all referred to by their numbers, not their names,
In particular, 5.
Yeah. 5 who died young, who disappeared because he tried to time travel. He has teleportation abilities. He tried to time travel and couldn't come back.
Right, and that's actually the crux of the first season is he time travels as a young child and then comes back at the very end of the first season to tell them that the apocalypse is going to happen in X amount of days. He doesn't really know how, but he knows they're all going to die, and his goal is to figure out how to stop it, which... that's as comic booky silly as you can get, but the way
it's simple, direct.
But one of the things that they do, which is makes that character that kid is easily the best actor of everybody in that freaking show by leaps and bounds. He makes everybody else look pretty pedestrian in so many ways because he's also supposed to be a 50-year-old guy. Right.
Yeah. Sure. I might still like Luther better as an actor, as a performance.
I think he's actually one of the weakest parts of the show.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. In terms of he and I can't remember her name in the show, but she's the one who can whisper. She's got I heard a rumor.
Yeah, because her and Luther have a thing. Yeah. What is her name?
And those two, not only do I feel like they have the least chemistry, but the fact that they're supposed to kind of have some. And I think it's even more pointed in the second season that there are some moments between those two that it's just not great. I like the guy. I think he's fine. And she's fine. They're both overall good in the role, but in terms of who's there, the top two, easily the top two of the program are 5 and the guy who sees the dead people, who sees everybody that's dead, and I can't think of his name either.
Oh, okay. So yeah, let's talk about him. Klaus. His power is, yes, he can see the dead, and understandably it's really messed with him, but also because his dad locked him in a room with dead people until he quote unquote got over it. So again, the dad's horrible. Which
leads him to becoming he's constantly stoned. He's constantly drunk.
He's an addict.
Yeah.
He's an out and out addict.
And he specifically calls it out as this is it basically keeps everybody away except for the one brother who died that refuses to leave him alone.
Right. Because I guess there is some, and we don't find this out till later. In fact, if you've enjoyed all of this, us telling you what the show is about, that is not what the show is like.
No.
You get this all piecemeal. You get this very slowly in a way that I think I grew to appreciate. It wasn't just a straight telling of all this stuff. It was threads left hanging for episodes upon episodes until sometimes you would get the question and the answer in the same episode. But yeah, where was I going with that? The Klaus character actually might be my biggest issue with this show. I really didn't like him for the first season at all. And I think he might have been one of my favorites for the second season.
He was really good in the second season.
But I think their treatment of addiction through him is pretty tone deaf and pretty it still wants to be kind of a popcorny thing, even if it is a deconstruction. And I think that can be fine. But when it came to addiction, and this maybe it's just close to home, when it came to portraying that, it was at odds with what that message can be sometimes. There's a moment in the second season where he relapses, and that's about as serious as it gets with recovery, and it's basically a cool music video, for maybe even more than one episode. It's not treated with any sort of weight. It's not treated with, if they had done more to communicate maybe the type of addict that he was, rather than kind of he cleans up between season 1 and 2 and does some good stuff and then relapses and woohoo, it turns into a party. That's not typically how that goes. So I mean, I took some issues with that, but regardless, he became one of my favorites for the second season, strangely enough.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to go back and rewatch that. I don't remember having any real issues with that.
I admit it's probably mostly me, but still.
And I mean, that's getting into more personal stuff. It didn't, like, for my 2 cents. I don't
that no
I
that's
don't, no, because look, you have your personal part of it, I have my personal part of it, and I this is where I think an interesting case can be made where addicts' journeys can oftentimes go very different directions. And I think that
absolutely
where my direction went may have been more relatable in terms of where he went than maybe it did for you.
So were you happy with the portrayal, though? Because I think that's the issue I'm taking. It's not so much that this couldn't happen. It's that, in fact, better put, I don't think they put that much thought into it. I don't think they put the thought into it that we're putting into it right now.
Probably not. I can't, I guess it didn't, if I have to think about the portrayal, I mean, yeah, maybe not as realistic as it could have been, but also he sees dead people and 5 time travels. So I don't know that, like,
sure.
like, and I get it that just because those things exist doesn't mean you should be able to, just brush away, oh, well, hand wave this. But
so it's me twice over, and then I'm also trying to pull more from something.
To me, well, I guess the way I see it is while the portrayal itself may not have been up to snuff, it's totally in line with who he was as a character, and it's totally in line with his addiction, and his relapse makes sense for him. He doesn't change dramatically, and if you look at it from his perspective,
he definitely changes dramatically between sobering up and
no. I mean when he from being an addict to being an addict to the relapse, like there's not a dramatic change for him in terms of who he is when he's intoxicated. You know what I mean? Like he's from the first season.
Gotcha.
Like I see that same first season issue with the character in that second season when he's sober. Yeah, he's a very different person. He's a very different person. So okay.
I mean, yes, I think we're probably, and that would be my main thing, is I think we're attributing more, like it wants to be what it is, and it's light, right? It's definitely not meant to be that heavy. It's not meant to be a character study on addiction.
Don't look at
addicts.
this. Yeah, this is not this is not deep film right now.
Right. Yes. Okay. But whatever. I guess that's, again, it's me twice over, just trying to. I think it speaks to my overall issue that maybe I did get out the first time we talked about this with this show, is that it does want to be something that I feel like it doesn't completely know. Like it wants to be what it thinks something is, and doesn't completely understand what that is.
Would you go as far as to say that this is an attempt at doing almost a teeny bopper version of Watchmen?
Sure, I think we mentioned Watchmen last time around too.
Well,
yeah.
When you talk about deconstruction of heroes, I mean,
that's the gold standard.
That's your gold standard, right? So not saying this is Watchmen, but saying the teeny bopper ish version to break stuff like that down. I could kind of see it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I'm fine with that.
I'll allow it. A couple of things that I do want to give some shout outs to that I really, really enjoy. Hazel, loved Hazel.
That was mine too. Well, okay, not even specifically Hazel, but Hazel and his girlfriend.
Cha-Cha. Hazel and Cha-Cha. No.
That's his partner.
Hazel and Agnes. I think her name was Agnes.
Loved that.
Loved it.
Man.
I also really love the Handler. I think that that character, real fun, real strong in terms of an antagonist. along with Lila. I really liked Lila in the second season.
Freaking love her.
As soon as she showed up, I knew that there was something up with her, but I loved that character, and I love the implications of the ending of the second season. Love the implications of her falling in love with Diego, and Diego having feelings for her, but also being like, well, I got to do this other stuff, but also this. That whole thing. Loved that. Loved all the stuff actually at the bureau or whatever it's called.
I think that's it. Yeah.
With the side characters and being able to go through time, and the geeky guy who's like, well, we're here to help. Like, loved that. Yeah, totally. Think that stuff is really actually some of the most compelling stuff is actually that stuff. I think.
Yeah, second season's better than the first season for sure.
Significantly so, I would say.
I mean, I missed the mystery of the first season. Like, second season doesn't do any of that. Doesn't do you do get some twists at the last episodes or second to last, but it's not like it did it the first season where you just don't know for a long time until finally it tells you.
And I will say that the maybe the one of the weaker parts of the first season actually was this Leonard, the guy who ultimately spurns Vanya to becoming the.
Oh, sure.
That character was so like my issue with that character was that he was written in such a way that was so transparent, that. But
still, they took a lot of episodes until he was the bad guy.
Which was again, I think part of my issue is that he was the bad guy immediately. Like, you knew it, you could feel it.
Sure.
And the fact that it and maybe this is supposed to speak to something that Vanya, like, that all of them kind of ignore it. Like, they brush it off almost at first, and then they're like, oh, it's this guy. Like,
well, except for Allison, who's the name of the African American that we couldn't remember.
Yes. That character, I didn't like him. I didn't like I was real happy when he got his comeuppance. That was fine. That was very satisfying.
I liked the twist too. I like going from him like, oh, he's the bad guy because his story was he had a dad that abused him and didn't let him like the Umbrella Academy, and then he met the Umbrella Academy, but he met the father, and the father was really mean to him. So it's like, don't meet your heroes, and then he hated him since then, and then he was going to grow up and kill them. But then it turned out that he just sprung Vanya into being the bad guy that caused the apocalypse at the end. I liked that. I didn't like all of the lead up to that. I didn't like his introduction to the family and the fact that, again, everybody is apparently stupid. There are so many, I think, bits to the show where that in the first season at least becomes a problem for me. And for superheroes that one lives on the friggin' moon, they've been going through their lives in such a way. It's just that there are a couple of moments that it strains their logical credulity, and it's like, wow, you guys not only had a terrible father, but clearly you're all idiots as well. Like, not one of you except for 5 seemed to get any sort of knowledge as they got older. He's the only one that seemed to get any level of intelligence. And I guess, am I supposed to go, okay, because he's been 50 for 100 years now or something? Like, yeah, that's the part that doesn't follow the most, and the part that I hate the most about the second season is that we're really back to square one. By the end of season 1, 5 teleports them, but again, he doesn't have the precision, so they all drop off at certain points.
They all drop off in the same place at different points in time, which is like they're all like in Texas or something.
Yeah, and it's because
like
the
Texas,
JFK is going to be assassinated.
Right there, yeah, and it's like, so it's whatever year that is. I don't know, 1960, whatever.
11. I watched it. I watched the James. Can't remember
Back
his
and to
name.
the left. Oliver
11/22/63.
Oh.
Right?
Yeah, by James Cameron.
No, James.
Earl Jones.
Freaking
Stephen King.
Green Goblin.
Yep. James Franco.
Thank you. I hate that part about the second season, that we're back to square one. 5 finds out there's going to be an apocalypse again, which is fine. I'm fine with, especially with 12, 10 episode seasons. Like, if it wants to be the apocalypse for 2 seasons in a row, that's cool. I hated that he had to reconvince them again.
Seriously, that was like, I actually just, I think I literally did this thing where I went,
He's rubbing his face, eyes, nose area.
when he goes to tell Luther, like, we've got to do this. And Luther goes, I don't care. I'm just ready to die.
I hated it.
Really?
I'm like, come on. We just spent an entire, yes, once they believe him that the apocalypse is coming, they get together. But yeah, the fact that he goes up to him and he's like, the apocalypse is coming again. They're like,
oh, well,
fine, I don't care. I'm a freaking bouncer for Bugsy Siegel or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
And with every single
All of
one.
them.
And yes, Allison's involved in the civil rights movement. So maybe she would have the reason to be like, I'm doing something. But
I will say that bit was, I think that was actually probably some of the most interesting stuff, was her being involved with and I was just waiting for so freaking, like, again, her being like,
her powers are the least interesting and they made them interesting,
but they're also the most interesting. She has the best power in the show to me. Like, the rest of them are interesting, but her power is the most interesting in that she says, I heard a rumor, and then whatever the rumor is what happens. And I love that she twists that into getting out of a situation and can do, but then also, like, for a character that can do that, the fact that, like, she does it once or twice in the second season before she gets her throat punched, like,
and that's one of the things they don't tell you in the first season is she doesn't use her powers because you don't find out till I think maybe the last reveal that she used them on her child once. So she's like, I'm not going to do it again. She's like a movie star and stuff anyways,
right.
Whatever. But yeah, I did believe her storyline a little bit more with the civil rights and she got married. Yeah, they did some stuff with her for sure. And speaking of powers, even, I love when shows do this, when movies do this, whatever, where they evolve the powers in a way that makes sense logically. Like, oh, this has always been my power, but no, actually your power is this. Think about it, right? And they do it so almost Deus Ex Machina with Diego at the last episode, where he's like, I'll cover you. And because they brought in a ton of agents and there's like hundreds of bullets flying at them. So I think is he cover Vanya so she can go back in the barn or something like that?
No, I think it's 5. Okay. So 5 can get to her. But
he covers one of them and steps out from behind a tractor and literally, like, Neo Matrix style stops the bullets. And I'm like, oh yeah, like up until then his powers have been he can curve knives. You know, he's like a less interesting version of
James,
the other James
McAvoy.
in Wanted. Yeah. And at that point, like, you've never seen anything like it before, and he just stops the bullet dead. And you're like, oh yeah, I guess obviously that's what he's doing. He has kinetic ability, which on the other hand, he just has Vanya's abilities kind of, I guess, but no, she's like sound, but it's still I like it when powers are evolved logically,
sure,
even if, you know.
No, that was one of those, like, actually when that happened, both Beth and I kind of did you know what? That actually is kind of cool, and it makes sense because
exactly. I'm like,
I think back to him throwing the knives, and it's not just that he's curving, like, he's very clearly curving them around corners and up things. Like, he obviously can control where they're going.
Yes, it's been obvious the whole time, right?
Yeah. And yeah, so that was cool. But again, also hated the end result of season 2 is once again Vanya's causing an apocalypse. Like, if we go into season 3 and that's the problem, I don't know that I'll actually finish the show. Like, I may actually stop on that because until you watch it and say, yep, they did. Well, yeah. They succeeded. They turned it around.
Wouldn't that be the way this went? I get you into it. You get me back into it. I get you back into it. And none of us can stop. It's an apocalypse of sorts.
I just watched the. I didn't mention it, but I did start. I'm almost through the first season of X-Men, the animated series, and man, animated Apocalypse is so cool. He's way cooler than stupid Oscar Isaac.
Yeah, why don't you watch that movie Apocalypse? Let me know how it goes. One more shout out for Umbrella Academy, and then we might be done with Everything Everywhere.
We're done.
I did like the episode that comes down to, because yes, you mentioned when 5 comes back, he's been transformed, even though he's a 50-year-old, into his whatever it is, 12-year-old body. It can't be 12. It's got to be older than that.
It's something like that, yeah.
But there's an episode where the answer is for 5 to find himself before he shoots JFK And
he's supposed to kill himself. He was supposed
that's
the whole thing. Is he's telling Luther that he's got to kill himself.
Well, the old man Luther
also tries to do it.
That was maybe my favorite episode of the season.
Yeah.
It was really good. But other than that, complete trash.
Yep. Fartbrella Academy. Burn.
I guess I'll say, since I've spoken enough garbage and I've now watched 2 seasons, that there is something there. I have my issues.
Overall, it's an entertaining show. For all of the little things that kind of rub me the wrong way. It's actually pretty fun, and
it's worth watching.
Yeah.
While you work out or something.
Yeah.
Even if the show itself doesn't work out. TV volleyball, everybody. We did it again. Here's another one. If you want to find us and any of the shows we talked about, it's podcast at bookclubformovies.com. We will be back.
Where next week we're going to do The Haunting. I'm ready. I'm ready for it. We're going to watch The Haunting. Let's get it out there. Let's get it done. You're going to love it.
The one I expected least, honestly.
Yeah,
okay.
The wiener of the end.
You thought the wieners were done? The wieners keep coming. Is this... Wait, okay, I'm sorry. Can I include this with the wieners, or is this kind of just a...
Ryan, this is your show, as much or more than mine, so...
All right, tune in next week to find out if we make The Haunting a wiener.
It's the one that's got Owen Wilson in it. Wow.
I don't got a good Owen Wilson. So come back next week when Matt has a good Owen Wilson.
Bye! That's terrible.